well, I can't figure this out. Like help me out. I'm trying to understand, dudes, what the hell is going on? So that's the name of this partnership. You tell me. 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 You tell me.
Man, y'all know what time it is. Come on in the chat. Let's get this thing cranking.
Live.
Only on Tuesday nights live. You tell me with Uncle Neely and Philip Dukes, the scoop. Live. Checking in from Waco, Texas. Debbie Garcia is in the building. Always count on Debbie Garcia to come on. See Paris. Got Dwayne Johnson, Houston. Oh, now. So what we doing? What we doing is about to get into this. You tell me. Got my man Dukes, the scoop, Philip Dukes. He's with me. Let me say this, Dukes, as we get this thing started, man. What a personal and professional pleasure it was to be side by side with you for nearly 5.5 hours in Boulder, Colorado, covering the Pro Day like no other, the showcase like no other. When I say no others, I'm talking about the quote-unquote big boys, NFL Network, ESPN, all were second fiddle to the pregame show network. Dukes, how you been, brother? How's your travels been? It was good to see you last week. You muted, Dukes. There you go.
Same here. Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Nah, man, it was good, man. I was glad to be able to get out and get some of that synergy in person. Not even just Pro Day, but man, just the whole week we were able just to kind of kick it and bounce around and go over some ideas about what we want to do about the future of the show, and be able just to kind of kick around ideas about the future of the program as well, right? So it was always good to be around, always good around to be around great company and wise counsel. So shout out to you, man. When Coach Prime say don't nothing move without Neely, he ain't lying. Hey, Coach Prime, hey, he be like, dude, hey, I'm telling you, it don't move without Uncle Neely, and he proved that when the whole situation of how we even got up, how the pregame network and the morning run was able to be next to ESPN and the NFL network. That was amazing. Like, even the story, I don't even know if you gave the backstory how Coach Prime was like, you had where we were going to be, and he moved it. And they gonna be up here.
Yeah. And what I loved about it, he ain't asked me about it either.
Yeah.
Because what I did was, with all due respect to Coach and his vision, thankful to it, I picked us a spot where we could come and go easy. Right there by the door, right there by the workout. So if somebody had to do something, we were gonna be like on field level pretty much.
Right.
And so when Ty did the walkthrough with him, he was like, all right, now who right here? And she said, oh, that's pregame network. He's like, oh, no. I don't care if that's what they want to be. They're gonna be where I want them to be, and I want them to be up there with these other folks. Like, we ain't finna have them separate.
Man, and the look that he gave, he gave was like, and really, so we keep it the look he gave you, the look he gave the pregame network, we just happen to be recipients, but the look he gave you is, as far as y'all relationship, I thought that was outstanding. And there's a lot of people who talk about it, and there's a lot of people who, then you got a few people who really are about it. Coach Prime really is about it. We had that conversation, me, you, Mel Bratton, and Coach Prime. We was up there, what was that, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about elevating people and people being ready for that opportunity. So I just want to give you a shout out for taking advantage of your opportunity, because Coach Prime didn't set up them interviews. Now, this is what they don't know. Steve Smith, Brian Baldinger, you name it. Coach Prime wasn't over there saying you need to go talk to those guys. Uncle Neely was out there saying, hey, come here. Hey, Steve Smith, hey, come talk. And Steve Smith was like, turn around. All right. And he came on with it. I said, all right. I'm like, oh, you know there's an MMA fighter? Oh, this shit. He said, hey, man, I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. I ain't worried about it. He said, come on over and get this interview. And he did, man. So shout out to you.
Man, that was one of the things I learned from Coach Prime back at Jackson State when he have guesting time. He's like, hey man, like that's your grind. I'm doing my thing, you do your thing. And so I just started. Matter of fact, dude, I remember the day, February 21st, 2021, Memorial Stadium. The first guest, not even just major guest. I'm talking about like prime guest, was Troy Aikman. And the reason we got him, I just walked over to him. I said, hey man, I handle Coach Prime's media, which was the truth. And I said, we got a live show going. We're on commercial break, which was the truth. And I said, would love to have you on for a quick segment. And he said, all right, where we go? I said, oh, right through this door right here. So he was the first one. And I just learned out of that. Hey man, just ask. Like they ain't gonna hit you. You know, they ought to go say, oh, not right now, walk off, but they ain't gonna hit you.
Right. Yeah, ain't gonna be none. Ain't gonna be none of that. And guess what? This is the thing. Like I said last week, man, Uncle Neely ain't no little dude. So even if it was some of that, hey, you better bring your lunchbox. I'm telling you. Oh yeah, that's a good one right there.
Yeah, that's how it was, man. Like had the little screen right there. I had the pandemic afro growing. You know, all the barbershops were closed.
Right.
And I was like, I was sitting there looking at Troy like, man, this joke look like he can still play. Dude got his guns out, man.
Sun out, gun out.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Hey, well, let's get on into this thing, man. You know, you always end it with a note, so I will start this thing up. First, let me say big shout out to Big Dog Chico producing this episode as he always does in the background. But I would imagine somehow he gonna find his way to the front like he do it every damn episode. He don't know how to stay in the back. Big shout out to Big Dog Chico. Dukes, made it through the tournaments, both of them, men and women. I'm gonna start on the men's side. Because you and I, long time ago, when everybody was talking about the fall off of the SEC in football, we said, oh, now, watch what the SEC does in basketball. And everybody laughed and said we didn't know about hoops. As it turned out, I think 7 SEC teams made it to the tournament. And you had 2 in the Final Four and 1 in the finals. You tell me, Dukes, is the SEC now a basketball conference?
Man, that's a great question. I think the total number of SEC teams, I think it was double digits. It was ridiculous. And then when you had the 2 in the Final Four, 3 or 4 in the Elite Eight, it was crazy. And so I'm gonna say this: it's just like when Auburn became more of a basketball institution when Bruce Pearl got there. They never said it was a basketball school. They started saying it was an everything school. So I think now what basketball has done in the SEC is it's taking certain programs who have traditionally not been known for basketball, and with NIL and the parity that's coming along with it, they're now becoming more everything schools. Because most schools in the SEC are going to be good at 2 sports, for sure. A lot of them going to be football, and a lot of them going to be baseball. And I think now that you add basketball to the mix, and what's the name of I forget the name of the cup of the best programs. I think it's not the Davis Cup. Is it the Davis?
Is it like Commissioner's Cup or something?
Something like that, right? We're gonna look that up to find out what that is. But the SEC is usually always up there because it doesn't matter if it's gymnastics or equestrian. Like they have these programs that we probably never watched that are good. Now you can add basketball to the mix for the Ole Misses of the world, or and their teams. Like Tennessee's had success at varying degrees in the past, but now you see under Rick Barnes a resurgence in Tennessee. So I think it's the way the NIL has impacted it is now the SEC is more of an everything conference, and I think this year they were right to put those schools in. The SEC was the best conference in the NCAA this year. What about you? What you think?
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it is. It's as you said, an everything conference, but more importantly in this discussion, I believe it's a basketball conference, and I think that when you look at just the history of college basketball, the NCAA's, the March Madness tournament, whichever you want to call it, Chico died here's a little bit, but I see your great coming. So you remember the prominence of like the Big East, the dominance, of the Big East, and when like the Villanovas and the Georgetowns and the Syracuses it was just a foregone conclusion that that's your Final Four, and you would have a Kentucky get in there representing the SEC, but it was pretty much Kentucky guaranteed Elite Eight, Sweet 16, and maybe a Florida during the Billy Donovan, maybe that gets in there. But conference wide, you wouldn't have this many. And I think what has happened with collectives, NILs, and now what's going to the future, revenue sharing, and schools already announcing what their revenue sharing is going to look like for particular athletes. You get this, Georgia. They've announced that on their current formula, of course, we got to wait for the court rules to get the math precise. But they've already announced, dog, if you're just on the basketball team, you're gonna make $115,000 a year. That ain't counting your NIL stuff or whatever grave you get on the own. The school gonna give you six figures just for being on the team.
Yeah.
So I think that this notion of SEC becoming a basketball conference is only going to get bigger and deeper. You look what Arkansas did, and it almost damn worked in year one. They said, okay, hey, Walton Family Walmart, we want to start winning in basketball. They put the checkbook on the table and said, we got you, go get it. They went and got Coach Cal from Kentucky, and look at the run they made. That was year one.
Yeah.
You know, let him actually go. Most of his team was people he brought with him from Kentucky. What you going to do this year when he acted in the portal and out there beating the bushes for the one and done? So I don't think this is an anomaly. I don't think this is a one-time incident. Charles Barkley said it live on the air the other night. He thanked Bruce Pearl for the run, and he said, more importantly, I want to thank you for turning Auburn, your school, into a basketball school.
Shout out to Chuck, man. Chuck, yeah. Nah, he did, man. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit right here.
Do that.
You tell me. Not a whole lot. We're gonna stay in college basketball. We're gonna go to the women.
Okay.
You tell me. Has women's NCAA basketball figured out South Carolina and Coach Staley?
Because now you tugged at my heartstrings a little bit, not just my logic.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. And when you look at what used to be dominance by South Carolina State, is now prominence and win, but they're not beating people like they used to. And when they lose, they're getting beat worse than they used to. And I think that one of the things that has happened is the parity across women's basketball. Again, much like we talked about on the men's side, you used to have one school here, one school there. Now everybody got somebody on the floor that's a WNBAer. And when you look at what UConn did the other night in the national championship game, they kept three people on the floor, and one of them was a true freshman that could get you anywhere from 12 to 20 points, you know, in a spurt in a whole game. And so I think coaches can get stubborn, because stubbornness is human nature. You know, Dawn Staley, my girl, I'd love to give her a hug right now. But we all get stuck in our ways of doing things because it's been successful. It's the way we do it. And lo and behold, you know, when you're the rabbit and everybody else is the greyhound chasing you, they start figuring out things. And it's hard to figure out how the hell to stay ahead. It's real easy to figure out how to catch up. And when everybody's shooting at you all season long and you're getting everybody's best, including their physical best, because, you know, the girls be down there throwing bowls in the paint too now. And all that takes a total on you season wide. I think the women's basketball across the board, you know, has caught up, and there's a certain level of play where you look at the South Carolina States, the UConns, the Texases, the LSUs, the Notre Dames. There's just a certain cadre of women's basketball that's going to be at that level that any one of them is going to be in it. And because South Carolina is one of those ones, you know, she's now 3-0 in national championship game. The bullseye is still on her back. Like, even though UConn just won, everybody's not even going to be looking at, okay, how do we defeat UConn next year? They're still going to be looking at, how do we defeat Dawn Staley? You tell me.
Yeah, I think all Dawn Staley's going to do is retool. I think she just went and got the leading scorer for NCAA basketball from Florida State in the transfer portal. She wasn't crying long, you know. And she said something that I thought that was so dope. They were asking her, like, what do you go tell your team? And she said, sometimes it's okay to let them wallow in that sadness so they can feel it. And I said, you know what? They're going to be back. And then her first move is to go get her point guard Raven Johnson's former high school teammate. Her name slips me right now, but she was the leading scorer in Division I basketball last year at Florida State. So she gonna get the band back together a little bit. Matter of fact, let me get her name right quick. South Carolina.
Do that while you pull it up. Shout out to the chat going strong. We're gonna be closing in 300 watching live. Don't forget when you're in the chat to hit that thumbs up and turn that notification bell on. That way you can subscribe as well, because we're gonna start making the chat where you gotta be a subscriber to type something in. So y'all make sure y'all subscribe to these channels. That way you can participate in conversation. As always, let us know where you're from. Duke, you got that name?
Tanaya Latson. She played at American Heritage her senior year. Her sophomore and junior year, she played at Westlake High School in Atlanta with Raven Johnson. So getting that band back together, she may have been the biggest fish in the portal when it just comes to being an absolute bucket getter. You saw some of the other moves being made, but as long as that transfer portal is open, Coach Staley is going to figure out a way where people want to go play for Coach Staley.
Absolutely.
And she's gonna keep South Carolina relevant. So I think they may have figured out part of it, and maybe they've taken the mystique away a little bit. But it's the same thing that we saw drawn away from UConn, or the same thing that we saw drawn away from Tennessee. And she was the person that helped break through that whole mystique, thinking that you had to go to one of these schools. Either had to be Stanford or Tennessee or UConn in order for you to play meaningful basketball in March. In the women's game. So she was one of the people that announced that when she got that job in South Carolina, she announced the arrival of South Carolina.
Absolutely.
So I think that now some of that is kind of being like, all right, well, South Carolina, we can beat them, but if you're going to beat them, where you going to have to beat them at? At the end of March, early April. Okay, that's where they're getting every year. Final Four, championship. So I think I don't think that they're completely figured out, but as long as the transfer portal is open, she's going to be able to retool.
Yeah, I like that analysis, man, because when you talk about figuring out, it's one thing to figure out the coaching, what she or he likes to do. But the other thing is, you got to have Jimmys and Joes more than you got X's and O's. And so when she recruits different types of talent, whether she brings in a big and has some dominance in the paint or then brings in guards, it always ebbs and flows with who's the prominent players, on her team. And so you really just can't go with her, cookie cutter mode. Because once you think she got it figured out, like you said, she's going to go work that portal and bring in a whole new beast in there. And I just still think, man, coaches are one thing, as players want to go play for, but also location is something else. And I take South Carolina over Connecticut any day.
Yeah, I can go for that. It's all you want.
Well, I'm gonna stick with women's basketball for a second, and go to that UConn side. I think this now makes 12 for Coach Geno, and so we can keep running down the list of All-Americans and players he's put into the WBA and players of his to become coaches. But if you just look at just these 12 national championships, is it time? You tell me, is it time to discuss Coach Geno as GOAT, and not just in women's basketball, but in basketball, period?
It's always going to be hard to make him the GOAT in a game that is not as popular as the men's game. I think that what he's done is almost like Coach Eddie Robinson. All he beat was who was in front of him, and he dominated his game. So you can't take anything away from the dominance. Would I say he's the most dominant coach of all time in basketball? Possibly. I don't think anybody has had a run of relevance as long as UConn. Even when NIL and this was the time for teams to figure out UConn. He still won a national championship now. So, and it wasn't just Paige. See, before you would have a Diana Taurasi, one of those players that just transcended the game. So it didn't matter who she went to, she was gonna win. You don't have that anymore. You got to have a squad now. Because the game has evolved so much. And I think that with the evolution of the game, it's going to be a little bit rougher on. But at the same time, he's still showing you, I'm that guy when it comes to this. Now, when in order to get that recognition as one of the greatest basketball minds of all time, or the greatest coach of all time, when you aren't coaching the greatest players of all time, it's a little hard. So I'll say that even with his input that he gives to the U.S. Olympic team, you can tell where he's respected. I just think that for him to get that mainstream recognition as the greatest basketball coach of all time, it's going to be hard when you haven't dealt with the best players, which we know come in the men's game, and that's just because of simple physical limitations. That's all. That's the only reason I would say that. So I don't want not hating on the women's game at all. Just trying to be fair about it for the question. You tell me, what do you think?
Oh man, I hated to ask you because I know you were gonna ask me, and it's tough because we have biases in this world, and there is a bias in America against Black people. There's a bias in America against women, and when you use the Eddie Robinson example, it really tugged at me because I've always been a proponent of we can't make the excuse that Eddie Robinson played lesser competition. Eddie Robinson beat for decades who the hell was in front of him. It ain't his fault. He found a way to be dominant in the conference that put plenty of people in the NFL. The first brothers to go to the NFL came from him. And so he had to have something, but people would keep him out of the Joe Paterno and Bear Bryant conversation because they would say, well, it was the swag. And you kind of see that same thing happening with Coach Geno. And they say, oh, well, it's just women's basketball. And so I try to make sure I'm not arguing for Eddie Robinson to be treated right when bias is wrong. And then I don't want to have that same argument for Geno when bias is wrong. Having said that, I do think that what has been accomplished, from say like Coach K, take men and women out of it, Dean Smith, I still think that probably is the tip of the spear, the gold standard, the ghost that everybody's chasing. So I'm willing to say Coach Geno absolutely the GOAT of women's basketball as far as head coaching goes. But if he decides to do about 4 more years and gets another one or another Finals Four, it's gonna be like one of them other debates about GOAT. You just got to put it down because the numbers is what it is. And keep in mind now, this is a guy that was about to retire 2 years ago, and everybody begged him back. And then when he came back and didn't get it, they were like, "Oh, we should let him retire." And then look what he did this year. So, and when you look at his presence on the sideline, his presence in the media, you really don't see that he can't keep doing this for another 5 years. And in that 5-year window, like I said, if he shows up again, let alone wins again, it may be case closed, man. Regardless of gender, he go.
I'll tell you one thing: these victories now, I'm putting a little extra juice on them because of what he's dealing with, the parity in the game. Like I said before, when you had a Brianna Stewart, when you had a Rebecca Lobo, like it was just certain people, like you just couldn't compete with Sue Bird back then. Now, when you've got all these different players at different schools, he's not just stockpiling the talent and beating everybody. He's having the best team, and he's having to coach his way out. And the clinic they put on against South Carolina, you saw a clear delineation. Like, hey, that wasn't no luck,
Yeah.
And shout out to Doug. I love Coach Staley. So yeah, he has. I think.
You know what that ass whooping looked like to me, Dukes?
What's that?
It looked like somebody in the offseason sat down with her roster or roster to be and said, what do we have to man on man beat them? And let's go get it.
Mm-hmm.
Because with that level of dominance against somebody that you're supposed to be quote unquote like equal to, like that wasn't coincidence. that was an orchestrated ass whooping. That was one of the things like, okay, they got the Dukes. I'm gonna go get 2 Chicos. Notice I take 2 Chicos to make up 1 Dukes. I meant that.
Oh man, don't do that.
But you could just see the formula. Like it was even Coach Staley. You talked about letting them cry in the locker room. She let them struggle some. There were times she could have called a timeout, and she was like, "No, we need this.
Mm-hmm.
Now they need to go through this." because this game is close to getting out of hand, and what a lesson this is going to be because we've been acting like we've been, as your grandmom used to say, we've been smelling ourselves.
Yeah.
So let's take this L this year and come back.
No, for sure. And now I'm gonna leave that there, and I'm gonna get into my next question because I really want to ask you about this. All right, you tell me. We had Shedeur. He came up. He interviewed with us last week at the showcase, and he had some comments or a question was asked about his ability to want to, or how would he feel about playing against or playing with the team in a rebuilding process. And he says, look, everywhere I've been, I've helped change the culture. I don't think Jackson State or Colorado had a winning history before I got there. Whoever sees in the value in that's going to be lucky to get me. You tell me, why is that rubbing so many people the wrong way?
I don't know what it is about people who just want to hop in front of an insult when no insult was directed at them. First of all, knowing Shedeur personally, knowing him before he made his decision to Jackson State, being with him literally when he made his decision to come to Jackson State, and understanding his respect for the rich history of Jackson State, I also want to say that context of that statement is like missing a word such as the history right before I got there or the immediate history. He understands and appreciates the Walter Payton history and the Robert Brazile history and the Lynn Barner history and the Coach W.C. Gordon history. But he also understands in his lifetime, particularly his high school lifetime, when you're watching college ball because you're about to go, he ain't lying. When Shedeur was, now I could reach right up there on the counter and take out this Goonville. By the way, that's an exclusive. It'll be out for everybody soon. Only me and Warren Sapp got them. That's a flex. I know Jack State football very well, Dukes.
Yeah.
I would imagine, Shedeur would have been a freshman in high school in about 2017. Jackson State was 3-8. 2018, 5-5. 2019, 4-8. 2020, 4-3. First year, Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback, 11-2. Second year, Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback, 12-1. He didn't lie. Why, when someone says the truth, that you want to hop in front of it, even if you want to take it the way it's quoted, like, hey man, they wasn't nothing before I got there. When you look at his lifetime, the guy was born February 2002. If you go look at Jackson State's records since 2002, it's a couple of winning seasons in there. But if you go look at like his high school, by the time he would have been thinking of what college to go to, we wasn't winning. And let me tell you this, Dukes. Outside of good old Uncle Neely being his host for his visit, we all know that the reason that Shedeur Sanders came to Jack State is because his daddy, Deion Sanders, came to Jack State. Why did Deion Sanders come to Jack State? Because there was a vacancy. Why was there a vacancy? Because we were losing.
He ain't lying.
Like, how is this stuff, when you put it in chronological order, how is this stuff even remotely offensive when it is just historically accurate? You look at Colorado. Colorado won the national championship. Eric Bieniemy, Rashawn Salam, Heisman Trophy winner, Cordell Stewart and them. Shedeur wasn't even alive the last time they had their prominence. What happened when he came? So he ain't lying.
He ain't lying.
So if you're a historical Colorado fan, historical Jackson State fan, and that man's quote bothers you where he says, hey, look, whoever picked me, I'm paraphrasing, don't have the best of records. I have a track record demonstrated in two places that when I show up, the records change.
He ain't lying.
Why are we mad about that? You tell me, Dukes.
Man, it's like I said before, man. Sometimes people don't. you can attribute that to it's genetic. That's what they call generational hate. That hate had nothing to do with him. That hate had, that hate was passed through gene. That's DNA hate. Like, that's chromosome. They talk the 21st chromosome, 21, prime time. The prime. So they was already upset with the brass nature of his father. Some people call it brass, I call it confidence. I know what he did for the city of Atlanta. You know what I mean? So when you look at it from my perspective, yeah, of course you want to hear, you want the quarterback to talk like that. Who do you want to go fight with? Like like in the AFC North, when you got Joe Burrow, right? When you look at the teams that are in that division, Lamar Jackson, like if let's say it was the Steelers, or let's say it was the Saints in the NFC South, who do you want? You got to go up against Michael Penix. You got Baker Mayfield, who say how he feel every time. Bryce Young even figured it out. Who do you want to go to war with? I got to, hey, we finna get this together because I know how to win. And it's not like he's not coachable. It's not like he doesn't listen. It's not like he hasn't been held accountable. We even saw Travis Hunter holding him accountable sometimes, and they got it together. So there's all of this track record of who he is as a person, and we let internet clips and quotes shape the narrative of this person as a whole because there was a word missing. Imagine how much differently that looks if the quote was, well, look at the recent history of the teams. All you got to do, like you said, to your point, if you add recent in there, this ain't even a quote. But they literally all times in order to take a shot at the Sanders family. And we done said it ad nauseum. I ain't gonna beat a dead horse. But yeah, it got a lot to do. It ain't what was said. I believe it was who was saying it.
Man, I love that. I love that DNA genetic tax. And let me say this. I think that horse leg just moved. Beat it some more. Because a lie unchallenged can soon become the truth, big dog. It do some scoop. So, like, we going to point this stuff out, these different standards and, the way you try to make a quote mean something else when clearly when you look at the path that's been demonstrated before the statement, he don't feel that way. I remember this, Dukes. I remember this. Here's another thing that was true and people got mad at. When Shedeur was at Jackson State and Coach Prime had signed, this historical class, the most prominent class in SWAC HBCU history, Shedeur at Media Day, SWAC Media Day said this when they were talking about past greats, whether it was Eddie Robinson, Grambling, W.C. Gordon, and Jackson State. He said, man, y'all got to understand something, though. Those guys didn't have a choice. We chose to come here. Like, we could literally be playing anywhere in America. We could be in the SEC. We could be in the ACC. We chose to come to a SWAC school, to an HBCU. And, man, folks got mad. But he didn't lie. He didn't lie. People want to, like, make up this narrative that these HBCU greats, whether they're from FAMU or JSU or Alabama A&M, I don't care where they're from, that most of them and all of them just chose that place to be because that's what they wanted to be. No, they chose that place to be because that was the only opportunity they had. And that's not shade. I say the same thing about Coach Prime, about Deion Sanders. He got interviewed twice at Arkansas, I think maybe 3 times. Florida State sat down with him. But where did the opportunity come from? His people, from an HBCU, which is the very nature of its designation and creation, to give opportunity to people who otherwise would not have it because of the color of their skin. And you then take that opportunity and you multiply it and go forth in the world and show the world what it could have been had you treated me right. How are we mad at that?
Yeah. How are they mad? We not claiming none of that. How they mad? I don't know because it ain't a hater bone in my body. So at the end of the day, when it comes down to stuff like that, you be like, bro, come on, man, that man ain't. That's not what he was saying, but that's part of it. That's part of the spotlight. That's part of the shine. That's part of what they say. Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. Like you get the peanut gallery. You get those people who are throwing stones, and because at the end of the day, there's a time limit on clickbait.
Yeah.
And when they get that type of clickbait, they find a way that they could kind of maneuver it so they can get a few clicks. Oh, if we don't run with this now, we're gonna miss it. So there's a deluge of information that comes out, of misinformation that comes out in one spot. And it's like you see all these different thirsty, so to speak, websites and people who want to say and Instagram sites or whatever, social media sites that say, "Can you believe he said this?" And then you get the original quote, and then by the time it makes it to Facebook, it's a whole different quote. You ever see those memes on Facebook where they take the smallest bit of the truth, and then and there's people who don't do their job and go vet what's being said, and they say, "Oh, I saw it on Facebook. It's got to be real."
Got to be real.
And now you have a whole nother narrative spun because of one word that people knew. You ever see those articles where a player may not say something and they may have said it the wrong way, and a journalist who really cares about the player or a journalist who cares about the truth will put in quotations the word that was missing or the word that was supposed to be there?
Yep.
Why Shedeur don't never get that courtesy?
That's his last name, Sanders.
Boom. Okay, I'll just make sure. Okay, cool.
So, let me drop a couple of jewels on y'all from the chat. Andre Walker, who happens to have jewel in his name, says, didn't Shannon Sharp go on record to say that the only, all caps, reason he went to HBCUs because he didn't have other options? Facts. John Gray come back and said, dancing at Mississippi State, for example. Coach Vincent Dancy played football at Jackson State, graduated there, went on to be the head coach at Valley. Why Mississippi State didn't hire him then? He came out to Colorado, Pac-12, Big 12, proved he could do it. Now Mississippi State calling. But what they hired an HBCU alum from Jackson State, who's also a head coach alum from Mississippi Valley State. But all those years, he was right there in Mississippi now.
Right. Yeah.
Dennis says the journey is why we appreciate Coach Prime. I love that, Dennis.
Yeah, for sure.
And if y'all look at the picture, I don't know if y'all know. If you think Dennis just light skinned, when you factor in you got a picture with the dog, you know he white. Like that's not light skinned Dennis. So if Dennis can see it.
Yeah. Dennis my boy too.
Oh man, I love some Dennis, man. I can't wait till summer practice when Dennis is out there on that bridge. That's the only time I see him every morning watching practice with his dog.
That's hard. Shout out to Dennis, man. All right, that's all you want.
All right, dog. I know you ain't at the crib, you're getting your travels on, but I gotta take it to the crib, man. I gotta take it to the crib with you.
Okay.
Since our last episode, I'm choking up for you, dog. I'm choking up for you. Since our last episode, Julio Jones announced he's retiring. Officially gonna just hang him up. Man, you know better than anybody what the Falcons went through giving up picks to get him. Roddy White was already there. People saying this is crazy. And then when you look at all the records that he has set as a Falcon, number one in everything, every damn category. And in a lot of NFL categories, he has even passed Jerry Rice or is right under Jerry Rice. So my question to you is not so much Deuce, you tell me is Julio a Hall of Famer. Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Man, I appreciate the question. So, yeah, of course, I'm not on location, man. I'm on the run. So, the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be a little bit everywhere. So, I don't got my helmet with me. But it's in my heart. And for what Julio Jones did for the Atlanta Falcons, I just think it was a classic case of right time, right player, wrong time. When you look at what he did in the Super Bowl, everything went all like this is the Super Bowl when he made the Super Bowl winning catch should have been, and it was Kyle Shanahan just took it back like nah, bro, no, we tripping. He was robbed of Super Bowl MVP. He should have won one because that catch he made on the sideline in the 28-3 game on third down, third and long, that was his Hall of Fame moment in my opinion. There were so many moments that don't show up in the stats of what Julio Jones provided to Atlanta, on and off the field, but mainly on the field. You talk about some of the hardest hits that we've ever seen a wide receiver make. after he, when there's an overthrown or underthrown ball, when he's making chase down tackles. When you talk about him being a defender when needed to be on Hail Mary situations, when you talk about everything that he sacrificed in his game, where he could have forced his way out of Atlanta when he realized maybe Matt Ryan's arm wasn't the same as it used to be, and he worked for the money that he earned. So just to look at a career, when you talk about a two-time All-Pro, over 13,000 yards, I believe. And he really did the majority of his damage in 10, 11 seasons. Like the last few seasons, it'll mess up on his first season average. But the first 10 years of his career, you can't really name nobody better. And if Calvin Johnson is the first ballot Hall of Famer, so is Julio Jones. That's no shade to Calvin Johnson, but he got out of there early. If Calvin Johnson is the first ballot, so is Julio Jones. So, and I think go ask the peers. Go ask Larry Fitzgerald who he thought the best was. Like Larry Fitzgerald, you got him talk. Was it Kyler Murray he was talking to? And he said, I forgot who Larry Fitzgerald was talking to, but he said, no, look at 11 on the other sideline. That's what it looks like. That is the best receiver in the NFL. And when you look at somebody who can run all the routes, wasn't afraid to go over the middle, could win a 50-50 ball, could beat you on a 9 or on a 9 route or a bang gate slot, he could play anything. 1,000% a first ballot Hall of Famer. I just wish he would have got a Super Bowl ring.
He ain't lying.
We talking Atlanta. We're talking Julio Jones. And you brought up Georgia Tech and Calvin, baby. I love it. Duke said, and he stood on business. If Calvin Johnson first round, you damn right Julio first round.
Yeah. I mean,
you don't mind, man. Let me get the folks out there some doubles.
All right.
12,896 receiving yards for the career. 1,871 receiving yards in a single season. 848 receptions, 300 receiving yards in a game. 300 receiving yards. 182 most receiving yards in the playoff game. That's the NFC Championship 2013. 136 most receptions in the season. 58, the most 100-yard receiving games of the career. 9, most 100-yard receiving games of the season. 3, most seasons with 100 catches. 3, most games with 250 or more receiving yards. Like that's to me, Chico in the back, and to me, Duke's in the front. It's 32 teams in the NFL. And when you are the absolute greatest at what you did for one team, that has to propel you amongst the greats of the entire National Football League.
Yeah.
Like, how can you be the best damn receiver in franchise history for a team, but not be one of the top receivers ever in NFL? And if you want the top in the NFL, how can you not be Hall of Fame material?
Right.
It just goes hand in hand with me.
I'll say this and I love my Falcons, but I got to be honest too. The Falcons are the one franchise you could be the best in franchise history and not be a Hall of Fame because
I was about to get to that.
Yeah,
we talked about bias, right?
Yeah,
there's another bias in America, Dukes, and Mississippi ain't got no team, but I'm going to say this: there's a Southern bias.
Mm-hmm.
Hey man, that's a brother played at the Southern school, went to a Southern team. It's always gonna look like with a but to it. But let's look at some of it. Let's look at the NFL. I hit you with his team stuff. Let's look at the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
All 20 teams team.
Yeah.
He was top 100, ranked 13 6 times, including number 3 in 2017. 4-time NFC Offensive Player of the Week. NFC Offensive Player of the Month. Led the NFL in receiving yards in 2015 and 2018. 7-time Pro Bowler. 2-time first-team All-Pro. And 3-time second-team All-Pro. And then his 13,703, that's what he finished his career with, stands at number 16 on the all-time leaderboard. And that was all done before he turned 36. And then, like you said, you can kind of wash away the back years of that. It was really like a 10-year career that did that. When I look at the totality of his numbers and when he did it and how he did, I'm with you, Dukes. If I had a vote, I'm voting yes.
Yeah, and this is the thing. We know that wide receiver is tough, right? Look at Andre Reed, and you look at some of the other guys who had to wait. I just think in the era where the passing game was promoted, he still had old school qualities.
Such as blocking?
Yes. Who put that in the chat?
Yeah, John Gray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shout out to John Gray. When you look at having old school qualities, when you look at the fraternity of the Hall of Fame, perfect example. If you go ask the wide receivers in the Hall of Fame, I'm pretty sure they're going to say, yeah, he can come with us. Much similar to how this whole Coach Prime and Asante Samuel T-step stuff started with Coach Prime saying, Asante Samuel was good, but it's a little different over here. The people with the gold jackets have to be able to say, yeah, come on. He's the guy that I think that you look at and you say, yeah, we played with some dogs, but you could have played with us. That's one of the best compliments that you can ever give anybody. When Jarquez Hunter, running back at Auburn, when he got there, Cadillac Williams was the head coach. He was the running backs coach. And he ended up being the head coach on an interim basis. But the greatest compliment I ever heard Cadillac give Jarquez Hunter was he could have played with us. And that was him, Ronnie Brown, and Brandon Jacobs in the same backfield. So him saying that about Jarquez Hunter let me know who Jarquez Hunter was before he got on the field and proved it. Same thing with Julio Jones. The respect that he got from his peers, the top 100 team so many times, the all-decades team. You go ask some of those gold jackets about Julio Jones' play, and I guarantee you they'll say he could have played with us. That's why I think that Julio Quintorris Lopez Jones is the first ballot Hall of Fame.
I love it. ATL, peace up. ATL down. Hey, T. Voltage says, I think only Hall of Famers should only be allowed to vote. Let me tell you something, T. Voltage. I happen to have been blessed to attend the Hall of Fame ceremonies last year with Coach Prime and Coach Sapp. And then this year, I had breakfast with Marshall Faulk, Deion Sanders, and Warren Sapp. And that very discussion came up. And here's the conclusion they reached. They said, no, Hall of Famers shouldn't vote on who getting in. Your room should vote on who gets in the room. So essentially, Sapp was saying, I shouldn't have a vote on who becomes a running back in Hall of Fame. Marshall Faulk's room should decide that. And he shouldn't decide who comes in as a pass rusher or D-line. And so there's discussion amongst the players because it started, 9 months earlier. There's a discussion amongst the players about the Hall of Fame having a Hall of Fame and that the people in the room are the ones that should be voting on it, not writers and such. So that could be something to come down to pass.
I like that.
It is on you, Dukes Scoop.
Man, so we're gonna kick it back to Colorado. So we know that one of the main off-season focuses for the Buffaloes, Coach Prime and the Buffaloes, and the staff as a whole was to cut down on penalties.
Yeah.
You got to see the first scrimmage. You've been at every practice. What have you seen when it comes to cutting down on penalties, and how much more work do you think needs to be done?
A lot. A lot. We had a total of 12 penalties at the scrimmage. And 12 penalties in the game, you're probably going to lose the game. Now, one asterisk I will put by that, Dukes, is that this was the first quote-unquote practice with refs.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of things that take place in practice that you're doing it because the ref ain't there. And then you have to get out of that habit of learning how to practice and play with an officiated game. And then there were a couple of those penalties that were dead ball fouls, personal fouls after the play. And a lot of that is just pent up emotion, aggression. Chico knows how it is, having played at each level of football, that, when the pads get on and now we really hitting each other, well, you hit me a little too hard and now there's some pushing and shoving after a play. And when that happened on a practice a week ago, coaches broke it up. Well, when you do it with refs on the field, 3 or 4 flags go in there. So I'm willing to believe that some of that will be cleaned up as we go through these last 5 practices and then come back for summer conditioning and August ball. But let me just be crystal clear about it, Dukes. Colorado's goal this year is to win a Big 12 championship. Not just go there, but to win it. And if your goal is to win it, that means your goal is to make the CFP. With that as your goal, two things this team is going to have to be able to do. We're going to have to cut down on penalties, and we're going to have to be able to run the ball. You know, this flip a coin, who's going to be quarterback, whoever can decide that. This depth rotation, we got a defensive line. Hey, man, y'all figure it out. But here's what I know that's already figured out. You're not gonna win the Big 12 having 12 plus penalties a game. You're not gonna win the Big 12 not being able to run the ball. So somewhere between now and Labor Day weekend against Georgia Tech, emphasis on running the ball, which is working, and emphasis on cleaning up penalties, which is in progress. Those are the two things I think are the hurdles for this team this year. You tell me.
Yeah, I think you got to be disciplined, right, in order to make it, because you can't afford to give yards back. And I think it's just moving positively, consistently. And what takes you, and what usually is your momentum breaker when you're on a run in football? Penalties and turnovers.
Yeah.
You get rid of those two things. You don't turn the ball over and you take care of the ball, and you keep the yards that you gain. You keep the yards that you earn. Then I think 1,000% you got. Because when I'm looking at the Big 12, I don't see the juggernaut. I don't see the boogeyman around the corner like, oh, we got to go play them. I don't see it.
Yeah.
And that's not. And so when I think about what Colorado can put on the field this season, especially when we see the final product, because they're not done. They're going shopping in the spring portal.
Yeah.
And it sounds crazy to say because everybody is so used to the names that are there and they're getting used to some of the new names who came from December. But this ain't the final version of the Colorado Buffaloes for the 25 season. They're going to get even better. There's going to be even more competition. There are going to be more faces. There's going to be some guys that leave. Like,
Absolutely.
there may be some guys that you like that leave, that you've grown accustomed to. But when you're on the journey to become a national champion, there's going to be attrition. There are going to be additions. And I think that's what continues to make Colorado good, is because they continue to top grade. See, it's one thing when you upgrade. That means that I was at this level and I'm just going here. Top grading is when you look at your best players and you say, how can I get better than them? Well, in order for me to get better than my best, or in order for me to get better than that top level, that means somebody below who's probably pretty good, we got to create room and not that we have to, but the player's going to create room because we want to compete with Ohio State.
Yeah.
See, right now, if you say Colorado, Ohio State, the country's going to laugh at you. If you say Colorado and Georgia, a lot of people are going to say, oh, no, it's not going to be a competition. Without realizing how close these teams really are to each other. Without realizing how close Colorado is. So once you see this final iteration of the team, when they bring in everything else that they'll have, if you are a disciplined football team, you can put yourself in the conversation with the best in the country. And I think that's where Colorado is headed. I mean, look at the schedule.
Yeah, it's a very favorable schedule. You don't have back-to-back road games.
Man, come on, bro.
You're running off 2 at home, go on the road, come back for 2, come back for 1, then just alternate. Like there's people out there with 3 road games in a row. So you got schedule-wise. Now I'm not talking about opponent. I'm talking about schedule itself. As far as the ebb and flow, you got a real good schedule. You got 2 bye weeks, and so Dukes, what I say to what you just said is spot on, because if you don't believe it, look at last year. Look how close this team was going to the Big 12 championship in Dallas last year. It was gift wrapped to them, and we sent the gift back. We gave it back. And when you get there, you win that game, you're in. And so for people to sit and go, oh, you're not where Georgia is, you're not where Ohio State is. Well, let me tell you this, brothers. It's kind of like how we break down that NFC South and Shedeur potentially going to the Saints. It's a path of least resistance. When you look around the nation, somebody going to win the Big 12. And because you don't have this big badass bully, you can look at what happened in the bowl game and kind of circle them as your nemesis. but you have quote unquote fixed those issues. We got out trenched, and look at the depth now we got at D line and on O line. And so what happened there has figuratively been corrected. Now we just got to put it proof of concept. But like you're saying, the path to the Big 12 championship is there, like to get to that game. And if you get there, if Coach Prime is doing something in Dallas, Texas, I'm gonna bet on him every damn time. So now what can derail us from getting there? Well, college football is all about, just like the NFL, about the quarterback. We got 2 damn good quarterbacks. Check that box. Now we got to do is not beat ourselves. Don't turn the ball over and don't extend drives by, jumping off sides on 3rd and 4 and giving people extra possessions. That's penalty. That's discipline. Run the ball, eliminate the penalties. This team is in Dallas for the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, I think so. And, man, just talking about that quarterback competition, man, ain't it beautiful to know that you got 2 guys who you feel comfortable with getting you there? 2 guys who you know that you can, they're like, when you look at the Big 12, and this is you can go up and down the rosters. How many guys on other teams would you take to play on your team over your guy?
Look, whenever I break down film for the pregame show in the season, the first thing I start with, Dukes, is who over there can play for us.
Right. Absolutely. I think, and I don't think we play Texas Tech, right?
No, I don't think they're on the schedule.
Yeah, so
we go to TCU. We go to TCU and Houston. Those are the 2 Texas runs.
So yeah, I mean, that's probably Texas Tech probably got the nastiest D line in the conference. Either them or Colorado. Like that's the only D line I think that can compete with Colorado's D line. Like, and I really, Colorado probably got the best D line. Like, you give me the best D line, you gave me a shot against anybody. That's what I feel like. Like, I remember in LSU's dominant season when they blew everybody out, national championship game, beat everybody. The team that they struggled with the most that year was Auburn, right? And why? Because Auburn employed a 3-man line because they could get back there because they had a 1st and a 2nd round pick. Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson made Joe Burrow's life hell that day. And all they did was rush 3 and drop 8, and people tried to do that. Georgia tried to do it in the SEC championship game. Didn't work because they didn't have Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson. So when you have a dominant defensive line, you can beat or compete with anybody. And I think that's what Colorado has this year that's going to allow them to get in that space. So, yeah, I'm just ready to see it. I don't want to talk about it. We ain't going to talk about it. You can watch me about it.
Yeah, trying to be about it. Hey, this is You Tell Me with yours truly, Uncle Neely and Philip Dukes, a.k.a. Dukes the Scoop. You can get at us on @The Pregame Show on X, formerly known as Twitter, or at Dukes the Scoop on X, formerly known as Twitter. Coming up on the top of the hour, so you know what it's time for. As we always do, we're going to leave out here the word of positivity, something from man Deuce the Scoop. Deuce the Scoop, take us out of here. Much love to Big Dog Chico in the back. The floor is yours, my brother.
Yeah, before I get into my final word, I want to make sure that people who were looking for the show on my channel, going forward, is going to be on the Pregame Network. We're doing some consolidation as we try to figure out the sponsors and how we're going to get that biz-ag. So, man, I appreciate y'all. But, yeah, going forward, make sure you subscribe here to be sure that you don't miss You Tell Me. All right. My quote for the evening, I want to leave y'all with this. Love is a verb. Love is a verb. That's simple. Everybody talks about love when it's something that you can talk about. You think you know what it is. But love is something that you do with your actions. And love is something that you kind of commit to with what you want to do and what you plan on doing and how you spend your time. So a million people can tell you they love you, but if they don't show you and their actions don't match, you might as well keep it pushing. That's my word for the evening.
He ain't lying.
And I want to say to Big Dog Chico in the back. Hee, back to me, because that's how you get a show done in under 60 minutes. 59:35, and we out of here. Hey, y'all be sure to tune in to the morning run tomorrow morning. Special guest, Coach Rob Livingston, defense coordinator, and also Arden Walker from that defensive unit will be joining us on the morning run, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, or as we like to say, it's morning somewhere. And then don't forget, Wednesdays with Warren, Uncle Chico back Thursday. Friday's the morning run again. Y'all know how I do. Y'all know how I do. You know how we do. Much love. Appreciate y'all chat. Don't forget, thumbs up, like, bells on, notifications, subscribe, do all that stuff. We out.
I can't figure this out. Like help me out. I'm trying to understand, dudes, what the hell is going on? So that's the name of this partnership. You tell me.
Tell me. Shout out to Chris Evans.
You tell me.
Tell me. Appreciate that love. Melanie says, you tell me. Y'all know how we do. Keep it rolling. Appreciate y'all. One love. Shout out to the sound man. That's right. Clown man, ground man, sound man, niggas in fire. Be sure to go over to Deuce's Scoop channel, subscribe there. Be sure to go over Big Dog Chico channel, subscribe there. More junk content to come. Yeah, we out.